So why doesn't your team get your data and your slides and your explanations? So here's the thing. I think we are all familiar with that situation in which you have to explain your work, you have to share your data, you have to express, right, what you've been working on, and then and you're super excited, like you want to share it, and then on the other side you have those people who are like staring at you like, what is this person even talking about? So if this is you, and if this is something that happens a lot, I want to share a couple of thoughts today to see why this happens and what can we even do about it. So first, I want to address the issue itself. Like, why does it always happen that people on the other side, people who are listening to you, are with that blank stare, like, what is this person talking about? So chances are because you are explaining your work in a way you have it in your mind, not in a way someone who has never seen that before can understand it. That's the first thing. So, and that's not something to like take the blame on. It's really something that happens all the time because we are biased, and especially if we've been working on something for weeks, months, or even years, it makes sense that we know much more. So at some point we are so deep into our own work and our own data and analysis that we start thinking that everyone knows what we know. However, that's not the case, so hence the blank stares from the audience. So the first thing that we need to do is to really try to tackle this bias. Try to explore and see what is the way in which we really store that information, what's the way in which we have this mental structure of how things works, and then try to like decompose it, right? So if you have like a Lego house and you have the roof, you have the basement, you have the windows and so on. So to you, it's the full picture because you see the house. But for the people who are seeing that work for the first time, chances are they see like separate parts that do not make sense to them. So the first thing we need to do is figure out how do we see it? Like how did we reach certain conclusions? What was our thinking process? And then find a way to share that thinking process with the people who are listening to us. Because if you just show them the entire house, they are probably not going to see the bigger picture because they lack context. They lack this preliminary information that you have to give them in order for them to connect the dots and make sure that they can understand you. So that's the first thing. It's our job to provide the context to the people. And in order to do that, we have to really be very aware of how is this information stored in our brain? Like, how did we make this story work for ourselves and then sort of reverse engineer it in order to share it with people who do not have the same background and the same knowledge as we do. That's super, super, super important because, of course, it is not really realistic to expect other people to know what we know. And it is our job to share it in a way that can make sense to them. And one of the best things to do so is to really guide them through your thinking process. Like you have to think a little bit what steps did I take in order to reach that conclusion, and then guide them through those exact steps. Why is this the solution? Because for a very simple reason, because people like this sense of knowing where they are at, right? So a metaphor that I like to use a lot is that your audience should feel like they are on a guided tour. And there is no better way for them to feel like they're on a guided tour than you explaining your thinking process, maybe also some failures, because that helps people understand what doesn't work and then reinforce why what works is actually working. So share with them that process. Share this thinking process, this trial and error, this thinking that you had in order to reach a certain conclusion and a certain outcome. At the same time, you have to make sure that you provide enough context for them. For example, you have to make sure and be aware what is it that they know and what is it that they don't know. Because sometimes, as I said at the beginning, we are the experts, of course. So we tend to assume that everyone knows what we know. And that is, I would say, in 99.9% of the cases, actually not the case. People do not know what we know, and we need, and it's our job to provide them this information so they can follow us in our little guided tour. Having said that, I want to state that this is, of course, it sounds like a simple process. It sounds like something that is quite straightforward, and objectively it is. However, we see many people struggling with that, especially as STEM professionals, engineers, data scientists, developers. We are not trained to do that. Like, we are trained to see a solution, go for the solution, solve the problem, optimize, and so on. But when we need to share that work and that optimization and amazing and brilliant work that we do with people who are outside our field, that's when we feel the friction. Because first of all, they don't know what we know. And second, we are not really trained to explain our work in a way that's understandable for them. So if this is something that you feel you should be working on, because, for example, you are not advancing in your career despite being the top performer. Every time you have to explain your work, you get this funny feeling of, I don't really feel like talking about that, and so on. So maybe if you're presenting at a conference and you know that the presentation is due and you always procrastinate on that, chances are that this is the missing piece. Like, finding your style of explaining your work, of structuring your thoughts in a way that is easy for you and understandable to others. So if this is you, I would like to invite you to my coaching program, in which we work exactly on that. I work with STEM professionals, as I said, scientists, engineers, developers, data scientists, who want to improve their communication skills and want to really make sure that they know how to explain their brilliant work to others in order to be recognized, to get promoted, and to get the funding they want for their project. So if you're interested in something like that, I will leave a link down below in which you can schedule a completely free discovery call with me, where we can talk about exactly that, your challenges, your struggles, what is it that it's like causing friction right now in your STEM career, and of course, see if we are a good fit to work together. Thank you so much for watching this video, and see you next time in another video. Bye bye.